Texas or was it Canada? Drinking whiskey in the morning light, and I work the stage all night long.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 21 of Bell to Bell with Bobby Blaze. We are coming to you this week from the Haddonfield Armory in Haddonfield, Illinois. I am your host, Jeremy Vilmer, and now the star of the show, Bobby Blaze.
I like the way you talk, Jeremy. I just come in from over at the Nervous Hospital up there at Smith's Grove Sanitarium.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, kind of cross-reference there, but what the hell.
Yeah.
Man, it's good to be back on the air with you.
Yeah, it is. It is always a pleasure, Bobby, and we've got a one hell of a topic for today. You want to tell everybody what it is?
Dude, man, well, it's episode 21. It's the scariest gimmicks that got over in professional wrestling. We got a great top 10. I'm real happy about it, excited about it, actually. And, of course, with the holiday season, man, I know you're stoked about that, so I think we just got a really, really good episode lined up. Again, it's the scariest gimmicks that got over.
Yeah. I do want to say real quick that we did dig in on a couple of these. A few of them are going to be pretty obvious. But I was talking to my buddy, Joe Slepsky, who runs the Joe on Joe, G.I. Joe podcast. Mm-hmm. And he said one of his favorite things on this show, because he's not a huge wrestling fan, but he watched it back in the day, and he gets to learn about people he never heard of back then, because all he watched in Chicago would be WWE.
Oh, okay.
So he gets to hear about stuff that, you know, it's out. Also, when we talked about the song Millie and Billy, he immediately went out and bought the album so he could figure out what the hell we were talking about.
We could help pack some Alice Cooper money there, go up his multi-millions.
Exactly.
One more album to sell. Good for him.
Yeah.
Of course, he is one of our favorite,
yeah.
singers and performers, musicians, what have you. But,
did you know back in 1978, Bob Dylan said that Alice Cooper was one of the greatest songwriters of that generation?
Oh, no, I didn't know that, but
Yeah.
it's not hard to fathom that, because, man, he's got some great songs. All that stuff makes so much sense. And, of course, From the Inside, we talked about that before, where he wrote that. And that album, I don't think there's a bad song in there as far as, well, every album's a concept album if your concept is to make an album.
Yeah.
I guess that's, that's one of those things. I don't know. I may have stole that from someone. I'd reference it if I did, but for that album, the cover, back when fucking albums were albums, and you had a cover and you had the lyrics and you had just the inside, no pun intended. You looked at it and you held it and I don't know, man, that one just holds a special place. And like we said, we mentioned it, not to get off on that tangent, but we mentioned that before. But man, I can believe Bob Dylan saying that.
Yeah, I just, for one of the greatest songwriters of any generation to say that about somebody is kind of a big deal. Bobby,
Absolutely.
did you have any business you wanted to attend before we get to our top 10 list?
Yeah, I'm just going to give one quick shout out, of course, to all the regulars out there. Thank you very much for tuning in. We appreciate it. Tell a friend. One shout I'm going to give out today is to Johnny Candido. He got a hold of me the other day. He was on Twitter, and you can follow Jeremy on Twitter at the Geekish Cast. You can follow me on Twitter at Bobby Blaze 744, or you can join sign in at our joint account at Bell to Bell Blaze. But Johnny got a hold of me and said he was interested in listening to the episode. It was episode 9 that we did on Chris Candido. So I want to give him a little shout out. There was a couple other people there that got involved in it that I saw where I referred them to iTunes and Google Play. And I think the Bell to Bell, I think you sent it over to a direct link to them.
Yep.
So that's pretty cool to be hearing from Johnny. He was actually inboxing me, direct message or whatever, while some of the stuff was being posted on Twitter. So we exchanged numbers, and hopefully we're talking soon. It'd be good to catch up with someone like that. He was just a young guy back in the day when he was coming through Smoky Mountain with Chris.
Yeah. No, that's really cool.
Yeah, that was real cool. It's good to connect like that, man. So that's about it, really. So I'm just going to wait and let you give out a couple of shout-outs. And if you want to help the show, they can our sponsors are the books at this point. But, we'll go from there. How's that?
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, there were just a couple news things I wanted to hit real quick. I just saw a thing earlier today that apparently 34 years ago today, Gino Hernandez premiered the new WCCW Texas and United States titles. And within a few days after that, the 6-man tag championship went from being trophy to being 3 belts. So I thought that was a cool little piece of news there. Also, I heard back from the 10 Pounds of Gold Twitter account that next weekend, when they do the NWA national title, it's going to be a new belt design, and it's going to be premiered by James J. Dillon.
Nice, man. What a guy to bring it out. Wow.
Yep, absolutely.
So he's going to award that to the champion, or before the match, or
I didn't get that much detail from it.
Either way, it'll be classy, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, I'm sure they'll probably do both. They'll probably show the belt ahead of time, and then I would assume if you have JJ there, you have him hand over the title when it's awarded. Yeah,
that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Cool. I think it'll be a great show.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be. It's going to be, an 8 or 10 person tournament for that title. I believe they're reintroducing the women's title that night as well.
Nice.
And if I'm not mistaken, Nick Aldis versus Cody Rhodes for the NWA title.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Now, and I think that's one of your favorites. They're going to do a 2 out of 3 if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
I think that's correct. I'd have to go back and double check, but I think that's correct.
I think I read it on Twitter, and also I think I heard it on Cornette's podcast. So I'm pretty sure that's correct.
Yeah. But either way, it should be pretty awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for sharing that with us.
Yeah. Well, I just, I wouldn't normally stay up with wrestling news, but now there's been some changes where I'm actually excited again.
Right. And that's what this podcast does for me. It keeps me excited, man. It's kind of giving me a new lease on life as far as just finding my inner voice and my fan, and also bringing back, as you'll hear through this list, some of my stories, of just being one of the boys and also being one of the fans, that just enjoyed professional wrestling back in the day. And some of these are actually, for our younger listeners, they may or may not know them, but I think they'll know some of these guys on this list. I really do.
Yeah.
So.
And well, in a lot of the cases, I think it's important if you've grown up in the last 20 years watching pro wrestling, all there has really been writ large is WWE. You need to know that the world used to be a little bit bigger, and it looks like it's going to get a little bit bigger again.
Yeah.
So
that's right.
To understand where things are going, you need to understand from whence they came. That's,
I like that. Yeah. All right.
So, well, with that said, I'm going to go ahead, Bobby. You've got 2 books out there. You got Pin Me, Pay Me, The Educational Wrestler, which people can get on Amazon, either a paper book or a digital book, and you can find it easily by going to tinyurl.com/blazebook1. You also have I Kicked Out on 2. Oh, I just screwed up one of your titles there. Pin Me, Pay Me is the first book. Wow, I'm stepping all over my own feet today. So Pin Me, Pay Me, get to by going to tinyurl.com/blazebook1. And I Kicked That on 2, The Education of a Wrestler, you can get to by going to tinyurl.com/blazebook2. Sorry about that, Bob.
No worries, man. It's all good. Hey, we're just doing a podcast here,
That's right.
We're having fun. Now, some of these other podcasts, I when dogs bark or doors shut, sirens go off, it's a fucking podcast, man. And, I heard guys, I heard a guy talking the other day, and they were referring to, they was talking about Priscilla Presley, but they kept talking about Elvis trying to impress Lisa Marie, and I'm like, that's the fucking daughter,
Yeah.
She's a product of, so hey, it's a podcast, man, and we want it to be pure, we want it to have fun, we want it to sound natural, and it's just 2 guys talking about professional wrestling, something we both loved and enjoyed as we was younger, and now we're finding a true passion for it once again, as Jeremy mentioned just a few minutes ago, man. There's just a lot of good reason to be a pro wrestling fan right now. We've talked about that the last couple episodes, so yeah, we're not going to worry about stumbling around on words, or maybe we leave someone off of the list or whatever. And on that list, you can go to the Twitter accounts and use the hashtag BBBB. And on this week, talking about the scariest gimmicks that got over, we had several people send in some really good lists, and we took probably 60 to 70% of those names off of that list. Either you had turned into me or I had turned into you. So I think we've got a good grip on this week's list. What do you think?
I think it's going to be a great list. Bobby, I know we had a couple people that could have ended up on here that we left off.
Yes.
So why don't you tell us who we could have put on, but we left off, and we'll quickly discuss why, and then we'll do the list.
Of course, a lot of people sent in a Sheik. A lot of people sent Abdullah Butcher, and that's just two right off the top of my head they sent in that, and I think, I think even your last list had Abby on. I'm like, yeah, let's, so what we did is we just say, they've been on several lists, and we just kind of took them out of the picture because we wanted to do just a couple of different little things to let our fans know there's other guys out there. So yeah, you could make a list of top 10 scariest, of all time, and certainly Abby and Sheik and probably a couple others could have been on that list, but, we just decided not to use them on this list because they've been on several, top heels lists. You can go back and listen to that episode. They've been on just bloodiest matches, list. So they could have their own damn top 10 every week. And I think you told me in pre-production here today, hell, we just run out of things to talk about. We talk about the Sheik and Abby every show.
Exactly.
So, and a couple others do. So anyway.
Yep.
Did I cover that okay?
Yeah, I think so. I think you did.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, those two could have made this list, except we just did, in the last 6 weeks, we've had them on the list 2 or 3 times each. They'll be on lists again in the future, so it's not a slight against them. Also, the way we're ranking this here, there's a couple different concepts of scary. You have just like guys you don't want to get in the ring with, but then there's also guys who are scary because they are most like a character from a horror film. So some of those made it. I'm actually, again, I love October. I love Halloween. I love scary movies. I am really looking forward to this list.
Cool.
So with that being said, this is episode 21, the scariest gimmicks that got over. And, you want me to start or do you want to start?
Please, go ahead.
Well, number 10 is Father James Mitchell.
Yes.
I do understand he, managed a good friend of yours back in Smoky Mountain, Kendo the Samurai.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that. No, I think this is good coming in number 10, Father James Mitchell. He's had such a good career, but when he was in Smoky Mountain Wrestling, of course, he can talk. And he was really scary. He just had his look about him, Darren Van Horn or whatever he was back in Smoky Mountain. But he just had this evil. He was already. I hate to jump past the James Mitchell, but he was already like the sinister minister, if you will, to me. He just had those eyebrows and this look and his talk and his voice was screechy. I don't know, man, but he managed Kendo, and he also managed a damn 3,000-year-old mummy. So that might make a list in the future. We'll see about that. Yeah. But as a manager, man, James Mitchell, what a character. He really got over and got a good run down there in WCW and I guess a couple other places. ECW?
Well, ECW is where he really took off.
Okay.
He's kind of interesting that, he was a fan of comic book villains. So he adopted his look based on a lot of stuff seen in comic books, like his eyebrows.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, nice.
Well, he got that from when the Punisher was a villain introduced in Spider-Man originally. So that's where he got the idea for curling up his eyebrows. His beard was grown out to look a little bit like the Green Arrow, but also just to look like the stereotypical version of the devil.
Yeah.
And he got his cackling laugh from Cesar Romero's Joker on the 1966 Batman TV series.
Wow, man. What a character. Yeah, that's a good combo there. Thanks for that's some good stuff right there. You don't hear on any other podcast.
Yeah.
And I know James Mitchell listens to a couple of these old school podcasts, so hopefully someone will tell him, hey, give us a listen that he made number 10 of the scariest gimmicks of all time that got over.
Yeah.
I'm glad he got over because he's a pretty good dude too.
Well, yeah, and he
was always good to me.
Yeah, and when he was in ECW, like I said, that's where he really caught on, but he's been on TNA and some other things. But he's one of those guys, like when I say Gary Hart, when you look at him, you see the devil. You look at Father James Mitchell, you see the devil. I mean, it's 100%. He doesn't even have to talk for his character to start coming across.
Yeah, he looks like instant heat, man. So, the funny thing about that was him and Brian Clark. I met him at Smoky Mountain, obviously. He was Night Stalker, Brian was, and then he went to WCW there. And they was always real kind to me. They was there my first night, my tryout and stuff. And we went on a road. I went like 10 days in a row to Orlando or something for some TV tapings. And about the first 3 days, we always just like the first couple of there and we shook hands and he was like, are we going to fucking do this every time we see you, Bobby, or what? You're here. So it was one of them things. Always good to me. And that's nice to know. But like you said, man, that look, that character, instant fucking heat just looking at the guy. With that said, let's go to another manager. He'll come in at number 9, and that is Paul Bearer. What do you think about that?
I think Percy Pringle got scary is what I think.
I think so, man. What a fucking gimmick that was, huh? It got over huge, too.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, like, it started off cartoony, and then you just kind of rolled with it once you got used to it. So, you know, Bill Moody was Paul Bearer's real name, I believe. And when Rick Rude dropped his name to the guys back at WWF, he also told them that he had his degree in mortuary sciences, and that was the genesis of this character. But his delivery, the "oh yes" line and carrying around the urn, it was just creepy. Yeah.
And we've talked about this before, and we may talk about it again down this list. I think we will. The whole production value of the WWE, WWF, if you will, when they start playing the music and the lightning and everything that went along with the Paul Bearer gimmick, man, it just enhances and helps get over that much more. And it just makes the fans that much more involved because of the production value you see on TV. But also, I've been at house shows, and, man, they just run I know we say a lot of different things about the WWE, but when it comes to production and putting on a show, it is a fucking event. And when you have someone like the talent that Paul Bearer has to get that character over, because in the end, you still have to get it over. It don't matter how much music you have or how good it is or how much lightning you shoot out your ass or whatever it is, that character still has to get himself over. They'll give you the leadway there. And, you know, sometimes if you give enough person enough rope, they'll hang themselves. But also they'll get over. And Paul Bearer got Percy Pringle the third or whatever. He took that character and got it fucking over. You know, someone had to do it. He did it. And I think he's probably the best one for that role. Just that the build he had, the look he had. He just looked like the creepy guy that you don't want to fucking see down at the funeral home, man. Yeah. I mean, it gave me the creeps. You know, I don't even like talking about funerals and stuff, wakes and stuff like that. Shit gives me the creeps. But anyway, yeah, Paul Bearer just kind of gives you that creepy. And I met him in Smoky Mountain also in the back, and what a gentleman he was, but he still had that creepy look, you know, like, do I want to touch his hand or not? You know, it just gave off that.
Oh, yeah.
Icky feeling, kind of, if you will. Yeah. Like I said, complete gentleman, but man, I was curious, you know, a little bit leery. This is something I've seen on TV. They come in for a weekend, and I shook his hand, man, talked to him, and it's like, this is creepy. So, yeah.
Yeah, he was like Gomez Adams dialed up to 13.
Comparison.
Yeah, he looked like touching him would be like touching a cold dead snake, just kind of weird and not the right temperature, you know, that sort of thing.
Yeah, definitely not the right temperature, man. That's good.
Yeah. I did want to say real quick before we move on to number 8, I think Paul Bearer might be the most abused manager ever in history.
Why is that?
Well, he was buried alive once or twice, set on fire a time or two, stuffed in a freezer 3 or 4 times. I just think that he took more abuse. And
well, he might be the toughest manager of all time too then. Shit.
Oh yeah, kept coming back, you know.
Oh God, we might have to think about that in the future, man. Damn, buried alive, you said, frozen, what else? Resurrected.
Oh yeah, set on fire.
Oh God.
And the guy flipped, you know, a heel and face more often than a coin toss. I mean,
that's true.
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah.
But he was definitely over. I mean, he was over as a good guy manager, a bad guy manager. He was over when he was taking abuse. You know, Paul Bearer is one of the top managers of all time, but he's also one of the just scariest, creepiest motherfuckers to look at.
Yeah, with that said, Jerry, what if, you know, trick or treat coming up here at the end of this month, what if you opened the door when the doorbell rang and it was Paul Bearer there for trick or treat? Would you like that?
No, I think I would not like that. You know what I'm actually doing this year for Halloween, because of our dogs, we stand out front to give out candy.
Right.
I'm going to project the old early 1900s Nosferatu on a sheet in the window. Okay. So as people approach the house, they can actually watch Nosferatu.
Nice, man. Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. And it's silent film, so it's perfect.
Yep.
You know.
And that is in one of the. It's in a book called 1001 Movies You Must See Before You Die, and that's one of the earlier films, and you really need to see it if you haven't. It's a great film.
Oh, it's fantastic. If you've never watched the original Nosferatu, you need to see it. I did hear that Doug Jones, the actor that has been in a bunch of stuff. He was just in that The Shape of Water. He played the fish man in there.
Okay.
I understand he's been cast to play Nosferatu in an upcoming remake as well. And
nice.
Doug Jones is just, he was a mime before getting into acting. And I've met him.
Mime?
Yeah, I've met him a few times in person.
Nice.
And Doug is the guy, like, if you put him in the room, like with 10,000 other people, and you said to somebody, I want you to go in there and find the guy who's probably an alien pretending to be human, everybody would go to him. He's just a little too thin, a little too tall, hell of a nice guy, but man, he can just physically act in a way most other people can't.
Wow. All right. Keep me posted on that. Keep the fans posted.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we said we talk about entertainment on this show as well, man. That's really interesting to me.
Yeah.
So,
well, yeah, and he plays the alien lieutenant on the new Star Trek series as well.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. All right. Well, with that, let's go to number 8.
Yes. Number 8 is Killer Kowalski. Walter Killer Kowalski. And I think, and you have to fact check me, that's okay, I think he got that name after he ripped off one of his opponent's ears. And I think someone told him or yelled at him directly and said, "You are a killer." And that's when he took on that name, Killer Kowalski. Fact check it if you want. If not, it works for me. But he also, I know he traveled alone. I've listened to some of his interviews early on, when I started listening more like interviews on YouTube and things like that. And one of them, he was talking about being alone in his car, turning off the car radio. He would talk back to the car radio sometimes, but he also turned down a car radio and would cut promos using the Killer Kowalski, that killer voice that he had, and cringing up. He said he'd cringe up his hand and do little things like a mime, I guess, if you will, or mimicking, if you will. I'm sorry, not a mime, but a mimic of what he wanted to project in his upcoming promos when he became, quote, Killer Kowalski.
Yeah. And that's, all the guys that you ever really hear that got over, besides a good work ethic, the one thing you hear on is they worked on their character. They knew who they were. They knew how to get themselves into that role to play it. DDP, Macho Man, all these guys, like they could plan a whole match in their head in 15 seconds and have it all laid out. But they also knew everything their character needed to do to either, get over or get heat.
Right.
Yeah, the way I heard the Killer Kowalski thing, it was a guy named Yukon Eric who had some nasty cauliflower ears.
Okay.
And Kowalski gave him a knee drop and the guy's ear popped off.
Oh, is that what it was? Okay.
Yes. And apparently the story goes, who knows what's apocryphal or whatever, but that was where that started to cement him as just the villain. So they came up with the story, or maybe it really happened, that he then later went to the hospital and laughed at the guy.
Oh, you know what? I wonder if that's a shoot or not.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say. Now, also, he was in a match, and I forgot who it was against, but boxing great Jack Dempsey was the referee.
Yeah, okay.
And Kowalski kicked him in the stomach and sent him to the hospital.
Oh, shit.
Which
he is a killer.
Oh, yeah. Which furthered his reputation. But did you know, I found out an interesting thing about Kowalski.
What's that?
He is the first man to pin Andre the Giant in North America.
Oh, is that right? Now, that is interesting.
Yep. So if nothing else makes you a killer, doing that makes you a giant killer.
That's right. Well, but he had a great body too, a good hard work ethic body that just was hard everywhere it looked like. Mm-hmm. It was just big, looked like big cock strong body. So, and he pinned Andre the Giant. That's that's doing something, man. Talk about solidifying yourself right there. Wow.
Yeah. And
how many people could say that?
It's very few. It's not a whole lot. I mean, he had lost, when he was still wrestling in Europe, he had lost a few matches, but by the time he got to North America, that's why nobody ever wanted to put a world title on him, because they're like, then somebody has to beat him, and that's not what we want. I did see a match or a clip from a match one time, and I think it was one of the Moondogs. And Andre punches the guy, and as the guy's falling to the ground, Andre grabs him by the top of his pants and pulls him back up before the guy hits the ground. And so, yeah, I mean, when you have an unstoppable man like that and you give Kowalski a chance to, beat him, you're putting some weight on Kowalski.
Yeah.
Now,
that's for sure, man.
I could find a reference or two, but I wasn't sure, but it looks like at some point in the 60s, he legally changed his name to Killer Kowalski as well.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
That's good to know. All right. You want to move on to number 7?
Yeah, let's go ahead and go to number 7.
All right. Number 7 is Ox Baker, the Heart Punch. That man just scared me to death when I saw him in magazines when I was a kid. He just had that look to him that was just scary. I didn't get to see him on TV until I was a little bit older, but when I was younger reading a magazine, he had that look and he scared me.
How would you describe Oxbaker's look?
Just like a big old brutal.
He's like he was a big guy, and he had a Yosemite Sam mustache and wild fucking eyebrows.
Yeah, those wild eyebrows, the bald head, the big, he just had that big body. It was like 300 pounds, but it wasn't flabby, but it wasn't muscle. It was just,
solid.
Yeah, just solid. Scary. You know, not the greatest wrestler, not technical, but he's going to beat the hell out of someone. And you always heard about that heart punch, and it scared you. You know, he killed a man in the ring was the, you know, word around a campfire, you know.
Well, two men died while wrestling him.
Right, and I wasn't sure if it was one or two, but I heard someone died, and I think he just did what you was talking about, killer, going to the hospital and laughing at the guy, Yukon Eric or whatever. Mm-hmm. I think Ox just went with the story that, I fucking killed him, you know.
Yep. Well, wrestling has never been the most couth of businesses. So you got a big killer guy who's got, let's talk about that heart punch for a second.
Yeah.
Because that thing looks mean as shit. You know, you get that arm out of the way and you slam him right in the chest and the guys drop.
Yeah.
Well, it's like the Vulcan neck pinch of punches, you know?
Yeah. You know what else is scary? And put you right down real quick. A big fucking club with nails in it hitting the back of the head by Kurt Russell, by God.
Yeah. Yeah, that too.
Remember at Escape from New York?
Yeah.
When I saw that scene, I was in Cincinnati, Ohio, and in a hotel room, and I was in high school, and a bunch of guys, we was down there for a big track meet. And man, when that scene come on, we hadn't seen Escape from New York, and we went to see it, and it was like, holy shit. And me and one other guy, one of my best friends till today, Oxbaker, we popped big time, man. And Oxbaker was in a fucking movie, you know, and we just totally did not expect it. We marked out, of course. And of course, Ox done the job for Kurt Russell, but hell, he was the world's greatest athlete, so what are you gonna fucking do, you know?
Exactly.
So, the other memory I had of Ox, believe it or not, not a scary moment, but again, a marked out moment. I was watching, The Price is Right with my grandmother, and I forget the year, to be honest with you, but I know she's still alive because we were watching a floor model TV at the time. And he got up on stage with Bob Barker, and I guess he just, you know, he's like, Ox Baker, you know, done his gimmick up there, you know, had Ox on his shirt, you know, and Bob put him over, and he told me he's a professional wrestler and stuff. So anytime, and that's, again, let me predate myself here on what I'm saying. When things like that happened back in the day, it always meant something. When I saw a professional wrestler in mainstream, you know, just from being a fan. And nowadays, I guess you just, you know, wrestlers are in all kinds of movies and commercials, and with the internet, you know, it's not that rare to look up and see a professional wrestler, you know, doing whatever.
Yeah.
But back in the day, when you saw a guy like Ox Baker in a fucking Price is Right, or in a movie like Escape from New York, I mean, you know, as a fan, you're like, oh, I'm all over that, man, you know. So, yeah, I don't know. That's just one of those things.
Yeah. You know, it was weird when you're younger before. I mean, that's part of the wrestler trajectory now. Look at, you know, Dave Bautista and those guys.
Right.
And it's just, you know, you make it as a wrestler, and then somebody needs a big muscle-bound goon in a movie, and boom, you got a whole second act to your career, you know?
Yeah.
John Cena's made a bunch of movies. Batista, I think, Batista, The Rock, obviously, is going to be the most famous, but I think Batista is going to go on to be a big deal in the movie world. James Gunn, you know, was fired from Marvel doing the Guardians of the Galaxy. Well, it appears DC Comics has hired James Gunn to do the sequel to Suicide Squad.
Nice.
And Dave Bautista wants to go with him.
Nice.
So there could be big things coming. First off, DC may finally get a good enough fucking writer and director on a movie. Secondly, I've been trying to picture Batista as Bane. I think would be amazing.
Oh, nice. Yeah, it would be. That would be nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, he had a hell of a good fight scene in that James Bond flick, man, a couple years back.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah. You know, he choreographed that, I guess, or someone did. You know, technical talent came in, but anyway, it was a hell of a good fight scene, man. He got over huge in that thing.
Oh yeah, no, he's he's really good. Look at that deadpan he does when he plays Drax.
Yeah,
and it just, you know, nothing gets over my head. I'm very quick. It's great.
Good stuff, man.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
All right. Well, let's keep moving here. Let's go to number 6. I'm going to have a little bit of a caveat that I have to put in here with this one, because I could have swapped somebody into this one real easily, and we'd be saying almost the exact same things. Number 6 is the missing link.
Yeah.
Now, the missing link was very much like George the Animal Steel. George the Animal Steel should probably be on this list, but by the time I discovered George Steele, he was a good guy.
Right.
And
That's what my brother told me.
Yeah, and I just have a hard time not thinking of George Steele as a good guy.
Yeah.
You know?
My brother, I told him about the list, and he said George Steele. And the thing about it is like, we were in Tampa one time, and a guy that was on the radio there, Ted Webb, they used to, wrestling was huge in Tampa, Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And he's talking about the first time he met, George Animal Steele. And my brother and I listened to the radio together, and he's like, he said, I went over and he's sitting there smoking a cigarette, no green tug or anything. He said, "Hello, Ted, how are you?" He didn't go to character when he was getting ready to go to radio, And Ted went off because he's a lifetime wrestling fan, being in Tampa. And he said, it's like when I was a kid and realized there's no Santa. He said, "Fucking George Steele sitting there with no green tug."
Oh, okay, hold on. I gotta. If there are any children listening, I don't know why Bobby just said there's no such thing as Santa.
I'm a Grinch.
Oh God! Because I know Adam listens to this show with his kid. So
shit!
So Bob
Santa's coming to see you down there in Mississippi. Don't worry.
Yeah. So I don't know what possessed Bobby to say that, except maybe the evil of the Halloween season.
I just said what the DJ on the radio said.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That's all I'm saying, because we was talking about the missing link, and I'm gonna let you talk about, because the only thing I have really to say is that I was in training. And Dean Malenko was talking about running in to Dewey Roberts, and we was like, who? And he was telling us the story, like, yes, it's the missing link. And we was in the ring just talking. Dean used to do these little talks, and really nice and funny. And he said, he's, just goes along with my theme where I'm getting to. He said, he's a nudist. And I said, that there's scary. So, and that was boom, boom, shh. And they all kind of laughed, and Dean had ran into him somewhere in Tampa, and they just, I guess he knew his dad back in the day, and they spoke, and that was it. And that's really, other than seeing him in the magazine covers, I think during World Class on TV you have to tell us all about number 6, the missing link, please.
Well, the missing link, so the reason I said we could have swapped George Steele in, it was very much the same kind of character. He had to have somebody that brought him to the ring. So he would shave his head into these weird, almost pom-pom like spots of growing hair, but everything else was bald. And then he would paint his face blue and green. He was kind of wild. He was uncontrollable. Yeah. He would grab himself by the head and smash his own head into people, and use the flying headbutt, which we now know is one of the most dangerous moves that can be used.
Oh, yeah.
But he was wild, and when you're a little kid watching him, because I'd seen him on WWF and WCCW.
Yeah.
And he was just kind of scary. Now,
he had a killer body, had that body.
Yeah.
And that look was scary, man.
Yeah, no, and he was a madman, It was like somebody basically they did. They let him off a dog chain, and he'd just go in and start whipping ass, It was a tried and true type of character to play. He scared me when I was young, and that's why I wanted him on here, because he was just a lunatic. But that being said, I could have put George Steele on here, but for me, he was a good guy, so it just didn't happen. Yeah.
Anything else, Dan? Or go to number 5, because I think that's a good segue there for number 5, what you said.
Yeah. Well, let's go to number 5, and Bobby, I'll let you intro this one, because I know that this is one of those spots where you can expand on production value as well.
Yeah. Well, number 5. What I was going to say there when you talk. Basically, let me back up here.
Yeah.
With the missing link, what I was going to say on this segue was, we could have took George Animal Steele. On number 5, is Gangrel, we could have put Vampiro in there. And the reason we didn't, and Jeremy knows a little bit more Vampiro than I do, but I got to work with Vampiro, and he's a hell of a talented guy. But he was a huge babyface when he broke in down in Mexico, and he just had this following, a cult following. And I think, Jeremy, did you say like more the Mexican fans that was of Mexican wrestlers organization would know who Vampiro was, and and also he had a good little run in WCW, but it wasn't as strong as it could have been. I think he had some issue with the office or something with his contract. I'm not really sure. But with that said, Gangrel was number 5, and that's Dave Heath. And I met Dave when he was breaking in. He got his first break in the territory up in Calgary. He was leaving when I come to Malenko's. He had been under training for a couple of years in wrestling. Obviously, he wasn't training. He was just tuning up to go up to Calgary. Dave is a hell of a good guy. In fact, he's going to be in Madison, West Virginia, this coming Saturday, October the 13th, at the All-Star Wrestling event up there with the promoter, Gary Dameron. But to back up what Jeremy said there, with the production value of the WWF at the time, and it's current WWE, and I get so fucking redundant saying I apologize. But yeah, when you add in the lightning and the fucking blood and the gimmick of the, you got your white shirt and a look and the people they put you around, you have to get that character over. And Dave Gangrel got it over really, really good, but also with that production, just everything that went with that. Go ahead, Jeremy. Tell him a little bit.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean,
he was scary.
He was scary. He had those weird, contact lenses, made his eyes just not quite the right color. He had the vampire fangs. He was one of those guys. His gimmick was perfect for the time it was premiered.
Yeah. Hot
Topic was just hitting all the malls. Interview with the Vampire had just come out. So
the reference I had was Interview with the Vampire on that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So that gothic vampire kind of thing was hot. It was top of mind. The spraying of the blood. Also, now Gangrel was a name that the WWE licensed from a role-playing game company who did a vampire role-playing game.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so kind of like back when he was the Incredible Hulk Hogan, they had to pay Marvel. For Gangrel, they had to pay for rights to use that name. But it also helped get from wrestling pop culture into vampire pop culture, because now you have the synergy of the branding and the style, and it's kind of a nudge, nudge, wink, wink to people who are playing the vampire games and really into it,
Right.
It was a perfect time for a perfectly done vampire gimmick. We could have put Vampiro in here, and actually I'd forgotten about it till you were talking. Lucha Underground. Now, Bobby, did you watch the Daredevil series on Netflix?
Did I? Shit, I'm drawing a blank.
Well, okay,
no, I did not. I see.
There was a fight scene that took place in a hallway where the camera just moves from one end of the hall to the other, and it's just one continuous
I was thinking of the movie. No, I didn't watch it, Jeremy.
Yeah, so it's this incredible fight scene that they did in Daredevil. And the camera it starts at one end of the hall, it goes to the end, and then turns around and comes back, and the whole time it's minutes long, and it is just constant fighting. And sometimes it goes off camera, and then it comes back into the hallway. So Lucha Underground, a handful of years ago, and I'll find the link and I'll put it out on Twitter, they did the same fight, but with Vampiro.
Okay.
And he ends the last fight by dropping his mask and then biting into the guy's neck and spraying blood everywhere. It was an incredible piece of filmmaking done by a smaller company. But yeah, I mean, Gangrel, I don't want to get too off the topic about him.
No.
He was perfect. I believe the Hardy Boys were introduced as his brood originally, or was it Edge and Christian?
You know what? I think was it not Edge and Christian and then the Hardys?
I think that was it. I think he had them both, but it was first thing. But Luna Vachon was one of his people. It was just a right time and the right place. And I understand he's still wrestling, but it's under the name Vampire Warrior now, I believe.
Yeah, and I know he's always doing fanging and banging. Mm-hmm. And he's got a school down in Florida, so I think he's doing quite well for himself, and that's
right
good.
On. No, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah,
but that was just a great role. He was scary. I mean, it was, it was absolutely horror movie level quality villainy that you got with him. Yeah, it was good
And
stuff.
the thing about him, he's a very talented wrestler, a very talented worker. He really was. He still is today. He's got a great body, still in great shape, still looks good. I saw him like maybe last October. I think the promoter over in Ohio had him here. And like I said, he'll be up in West Virginia this coming weekend. So, yeah, I think it's one of those deals where, you know, he probably stays pretty booked this time of the year due to
Yeah, I bet.
So, doing the Vampire Warrior or what have you, you know.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Good deal. Good deal. Well, let's move on to number 4 then, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
And this guy here, man, back in the day, hell, just that look, just the way he would glare at you. There was something to him. Yep. The dog's going to announce it. He's done seen a snake. It's Jake the Snake Roberts. Ollie has seen the snake, Jeremy.
Yeah, that was actually Little Whiskey running through the house.
Oh, okay.
She's my guard dog. So I'm going to close this door real quick. Give me 1 second here, Bobby.
Yes, we got Jake the Snake Roberts coming in at number 4. And, you know, Jake just had that big, long, lean look to him. One hell of a performer. The thing about Jake Roberts, he never wasted a move because of his psychology. Mm-hmm. So when he come to the ring and had that snake, he was in the business for years, you know, before he went to Vince, and they introduced the snake and went on a big stage with it, if you will. But he just had it ring psychology that when he could look at you, he could have the bag over his shoulder, he could have the snake out. But that was one of those things kind of like we talked about with the belt, you know. He knew how to get over, and it scared the shit out of people. You'd see kids backing away from the guardrails if you were at a show or if you saw it on TV or what have you. People were legitimately scared of Jake the Snake Roberts.
Well, he was, you know, you're talking about the psychology and him looking at other wrestlers, but he would hold eye contact with the camera while doing an interview.
Oh yeah.
That made you, the viewer at home, fucking squirm, because you're just like, dude, why are you looking at me like that?
Yeah, he did.
He had a way of speaking that was just so precise. His voice and everything was just so perfect for what he was doing.
Yeah, he used the right words at the right time. Mm-hmm. I don't know, man. Great interview skills.
You're right. There was no wasted motion in anything he did. Everything was simple. Now, did he actually create the DDT?
Well, this is what I heard, and Ron Starr told me that he introduced it when he was out in Kansas City, and I don't know if that's true or not because, you know, everyone steals from everyone.
Sure, yeah.
But I know when we were in Canada, Ron was up there, and Jake was, you know, still in WWF at the time, and he liked Jake and everything. It's just that he said, and he was talking about how good it was getting over. Really, he was putting him over. He said, "Yeah, I come up the DDT out in Kansas City." So I don't know. As far as I know, though, you know, Jake was the one that took it obviously on a national level because he had worked in so many different territories, had that skill level, and of course he had been in WCW before that, or NWA or what have you. Before he went to, you know, with the big production with Snake and everything, like I said, with WWS. So, yeah, I mean, most people probably want to say Jake the Snake Roberts, but, you know, you could probably hear Joe Smo down the street that's, you know, the 80-year-old guy bitching saying, I'm the original Dr. X and I invented a fucking DDT. And Ron Starr stole it from me and Jake Roberts stole it from him. Who knows? You know, it's one of those things that everyone borrows from everyone. So I think Jake is the most over. You know, and that's a deadly, we talked about in our moves, man, the DDT, if you go back and listen to that episode, that's one of the most deadly fucking moves in professional wrestling because you can fuck a dude right up. You hooked her head like that. We talked about the incident with Ricky Steamboat right on the concrete. Jake didn't want to do it to him. Even trying to protect someone doing that move, you could be hurt, man. And
absolutely.
Jake knew how to do it. The setup with the short arm clothesline, hook you, go back to what you said about that look into the camera, look into the fans, whatever it is, and then snap it down on you, and that's it, man. It's lights out. You know, that's scary right there.
Yeah. Well, the DDT is the perfect bump finisher because it can come at any time.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah. You know, you could be getting your ass whipped and accidentally DDT a guy, and it's done. It's a one-shot kill. Everything's done.
Yep.
The way he delivered it, his setup and everything were just perfect. But Jake the Snake is scary. Yeah. Just chillingly so, and ruthless. And the DDT was a perfect move for him. And I remember seeing you're right. Kids in the crowd would back up from the gate when he walked by. You know, he was just a chilling villain. I don't know that making him a face was ever a good idea, because I remember it killed him for me. I was just like, why, what the hell's going on here?
Yeah.
You know?
I don't think it helped him, that's for sure. I mean, he still got over, but not like he did as a heel.
Yeah.
You know.
Now, there is an apocryphal story that they were going to run a program with him versus Hulk Hogan when he was still a heel.
Right.
And the crowd was booing Hogan and cheering Jake. And so Hogan just said, nope, no more of that shit.
Yeah.
You
I've
know?
heard a couple of different versions of that. What happened with, I guess his run was up next with Ultimate Warrior.
Mm-hmm.
He was coming up. Jake was going to come up next, and that's when that kind of took place, I guess, with Hogan. I don't know what the whole details are, but Jake talks about it on Name Your Poison or whatever, that DVD. Talks about, you know, just sometimes luck not on his side, you know, bad timing or whatever. But yeah, I guess he could have had a good run with Hogan and made a shitload of money. I guarantee that.
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
And Hogan says, no deal, huh? Not with someone out there cheering for the other guy.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm calling it apocryphal, because it's not like I heard it firsthand from somebody who knew.
Right.
But I've heard it 10 million times from a bunch of different people. Yeah, we should probably get moving, because that was my 45-minute timer.
Right, 45, yes. Well, with that said, I think Jake could have been in any of these situations. He could have been in the top 5. He come in at number 4. With that said, I'm gonna real quickly just go back, name down 10 to 4 before we get into the top 3 of our scariest gimmicks ever that got over. We started off with number 10, Father James Mitchell. Number 9, Paul Bearer. Number 8, Killer Kowalski. Number 7, Ox Baker. Number 6, The Missing Link. Number 5, Gangrel. And number 4, you just heard Jake the Snake Roberts. And with that said, we're going to go to number 3, and that is who, Jeremy?
That is Kevin Sullivan.
Yes. Walking out of that ocean, man, coming up through there, darkness. Kevin Sullivan, scary guy, man. I love Kevin to death, but man, the character, the way he got that over, man, the way he got himself over, man, he's just scary heel, his promos, everything, the eyes, that look, the way he rolled them, just everything. Tell us some more, Jeremy.
Well, we've talked a little bit about him in the past.
Right.
Kevin Sullivan, I realize again, he never said the word Satanism, but everything else he did, everybody around him, satanic wrestler was the albatross that was on him.
Yeah.
Every word out of his mouth. He's another one of those guys that he only ran too long in a handful of interviews ever, it would appear.
Yeah.
Everything he said was at least thought out to the point where it was just chilling and off-putting and scary. And for a guy who looked smaller than a lot of people he was around, he was just a tough little badass.
Yes.
I realize, he's, within an inch of my height. He's not as little as I think he is, but when you look at a ring full of big guys and you see somebody like Kevin Sullivan, he looks smaller. A friend of mine was playing blackjack one time in Reno, and apparently Kurt Hennig was there. And Kurt Hennig on TV against guys like Hulk Hogan looked small. And this buddy of mine, he's like, fuck, he's like 2 people from shoulder to shoulder and at least 3 foot from front to back. Kurt Hennig is not a small man.
No, Kurt Hennig was one of the biggest, strongest fucking natural athletes I ever saw in my life.
Yeah.
He just, when I say natural, I'm not talking about any supplement type stuff. I'm just saying he just naturally, he was just a big, strong guy. I mean, he was a lot bigger than what people thought he was.
Yep. And it's the same that happens to Kevin Sullivan. It's, you're in the ring with Hulk Hogan. Well, yeah, the guy's, 6.5 feet tall and 300 pounds. Fucking everybody's going to look small,
Right.
Yeah.
But Kevin Sullivan knew how to look big.
Yep.
He knew how to look big and get over, man.
He was just
like
mean and rough.
Yes. I don't know, but we had him in, at the top of our heels and things like that. So I don't know how much more we can go on about Kevin Sullivan, but, I have nothing but respect for him, and I think he has one of the greatest minds in professional wrestling ever. And I know he's a very intelligent person about boxing and baseball and everything else too. But his character, that's the thing that made Kevin Sullivan just so believable. That's the thing. He was so fucking believable. You didn't think about his height, you didn't think about his size, nothing like that. You thought about the evilness and the things he said. And he was one of the people, and sometimes I think people like this in professional wrestling. Even back in the day, when someone says they're going to do something to you during a promo, they need to go out there and do that. And Kevin Sullivan usually did that. He went out there and backed up what he said he was going to do. And that's so important for your believability and to knowing where your character is going to go. And so he knew that. He had a sense of direction. Like you said, he didn't waste, no pun intended, he didn't waste a lot of words with his promos. He was precise and knew exactly what he was going to say and where he was going to go with it. So that's why Kevin Sullivan's number 3.
Absolutely. And again, talking about, working on your character, Kevin Sullivan, I don't know at what point he came up with the idea for the evil, semi-mystical guy that he was going to portray. But once he locked in on that, he went with it.
Yeah.
And he stayed on it, and he, and he refined it, and he worked. It's just, it's a piece of, character development that a lot of these guys, you don't really have a sense of who they are, like you did with guys like Jake the Snake Roberts or Kevin Sullivan.
Yeah.
And these, Kevin Sullivan, once you got a handle on who he was, what he was trying to portray, you realized you were dealing with the Aleister Crowley of professional wrestling.
Nice. Yeah. Nice. All right, man. Well, number 2, is it Michael Myers? Is it the mayor?
It is the mayor.
It is Kane coming in at number 2.
The big red mare. Wait.
Yeah. No. Yes. Well, we got us a Michael Myers reference in there for our theme, and we got us a mayor reference in there, and congratulations to you, Glenn Jacobs. But the big red machine here, Kane, comes in at number 2. Scary as hell, from hell, setting fires, little arsonist. What are you going to do? Or huge arsonist, I guess.
Yeah.
So.
Appears to have been a real problem for him.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, Kane
Last matches, you'll get burned.
Yeah, Kane was brought in as, I guess the easiest way to say, as a foil to the Undertaker.
Yeah.
But he was scarier than hell, especially before they had him unmasked at any point.
Right.
And you really didn't know, and also because the WWE had been training us to their production value for so long.
Right.
We figured when they finally unmasked him, there was going to be some Jason from Friday the 13th effect or something underneath it. And they shit the bed a little bit, but it didn't really take away from the character overall.
Right.
He's big, he's mean, he's just rough. He hits you like a fucking truck. He has maintained this character for what, like 17 or 18 years now? Maybe a little bit longer?
Yeah, about that. Maybe a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Big, strong guy, great body. Tremendous worker when he wants to be, but as he's gotten older, he doesn't have to do a whole lot anymore. He just works,
Yeah.
And but back in the day, that character with the production, like you said, it scared the shit out of people, man. One of those people when the fire came up and all that, it's one of those things that you saw people, the kids on TV like, what's going on here? Hey, daddy, whatever. They brought him along the right way.
Yeah, and just as, from a character design, like if you were designing a video game or a comic book villain, he was right in line with that look. He's got a theme, he's got a style, it stays consistent.
Yeah.
That mask was actually somewhat terrifying. When he was first around, the mask he wore was actually scary.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, it was a perfect horror style villain. And and then giving him the moveset that they did where he just looked like a fucking monster.
Right.
He just, the one-handed choke slam and all these, not a lot of people were doing a choke slam before him.
No, he can get your ass up too because he's like 6'10". He can get you up in the air, man.
Yeah.
So, you're doing way up there when you come down. I think that's going to be a great segue. We have to kind of back up a little bit, Jeremy, if that's okay for our number 1. We're going to go back to November 19th of 1990, the debut of Kane's brother, The Undertaker, comes in at number 1.
Oh, I had the gobbledygooker down for...
Save that one. Man, oh man. The Undertaker, what do you think? Number 1, scariest gimmick of all time.
I would say absolutely.
Yeah.
I would start with just the longevity of the character.
Yeah, he may be the longest employee there as far as one of the wrestlers, one of the boys, currently.
Yeah, he, especially in his younger days, I don't want to detract from anything he's doing now.
Right. No.
Especially in his younger days.
Hell.
For such a big guy and doing that rope walk and all that stuff that he did. He was another guy like Jake Roberts and Kane. The look, realizing there's been some inconsistencies here and there, whatever, changes.
Yeah, sure.
But you don't have to have him say a word for his character to come across. It's just the visual package carried it so well.
Yeah. Well, that's going to go right along, I was going to say, and that's this. I always thought he had the greatest gimmick of all time early on because, first of all, he was really big, tall, strong, had a good body, okay? Mm-hmm. And it could obviously work because he had worked, out in Texas and he worked in WCW and things like that, so that wasn't an issue. But what I said was this. He had the greatest character because, first of all, he didn't ever fucking take any bumps. And if he did, it was one bump. And of course, this is early on what I'm talking about. And in his interviews, he never had to talk. So all I had to do was go out there and perform and, do the rope, he'd do the chop, do whatever. And then when he did sell, he'd go down and take the one bump, whatever it was, and then set up and kind of no sell. When he came up, the dead man, boom, he rose up. That's scary. Like you know there's a ring, but in your mind, you're like, he's popping out of a fucking coffin. The dead man has risen, you're like, oh shit, that's scary. And then he finishes them off with the tombstone or what have you. So, I always thought that was really good. Of course, it showed later on when he had those matches with, Mankind, who could have possibly made our list, I guess. We had talked to, you had sent me a little message about that. Hell, he was athletic, getting on top of them cages and just everything he done, man. He just, fucking diving outside the ring, 6'11", 10, whatever it is, diving outside the ring and shit like that. Man, it's incredible. That's why, we had him coming in at number one, man.
Yeah. His in-ring, there's a reason they called him the Phenom or,
Yeah.
Back then, it's getting a little more frequent now. Back when he started and coming up through his career, he did shit that big men did not do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That might be true. But you know what I'm going to do, Jeremy?
What's that?
I'm going to fucking call in the Freebird rule because you're talking about big men and done stuff they shouldn't have done. I'm going to talk about one of those wild, legit badasses and the most scariest professional wrestlers of all time, because I'm not going to forget about it this week. It's fucking Bruiser Brody. I'm using the Freebird I'm going to call in Bruiser Brody using the Freebird rule. What do you think about that?
I think that is a perfect use of the Freebird rule.
Yes, I do too. We can't leave him off this week, by God.
Nope. There is a story that I love regarding Bruiser Brody, and it was a cage match with him and Lex Luger.
Right.
And apparently at some point, Brody just quit selling.
Yep.
And just stopped. And then I guess started working stiff on Lex to the point where Lex just got out of the ring and left.
Yeah. It's on YouTube. You can see it.
And he goes up to Brody afterwards and he goes, "Did I do something wrong?" Brody just looked at him and said, "No."
Nope. That's all he said. Yep.
Yeah.
But he was an inventor of that fucking brawling style. He was a big, strong man. I'm going to tell you how scary he was. This is why I wanted to break out. I appreciate you letting me break it out. And because we hadn't used it for a while, and we had left him off the list last week, and we, with no intention of doing so, how we didn't do a bloodiest matches, I don't know. But here's the thing about Brody, man. I was 17 years old. It's at the Huntington Memorial Fieldhouse, and he was wrestling. The main event was going to be him and Harley Race. And man, Brody come through there, and it was a packed house back in the day. And man, this was right off when the Georgia Championship Wrestling NWA, they used to come through here, once every 3 months. They just had started back in like 1980 of doing so. So it's probably the third time through maybe. And man, Brody when they had the spotlight on the ring and then they turned it to the doors, Brody come out of the locker room, and the way they had it set out, they had these big-ass, long wooden tables, and they were legit big-ass, thick wooden tables down each side because they didn't have a guardrail for about the first probably 40 feet to the ring. And he just started tearing them fucking tables upside down on each side of them. And me and my buddies marked out so bad, we went over afterwards to pick up a table after the matches. We hung around to see where how heavy those tables were, and they were legitimately heavy. He was throwing them like fucking blowing a fucking straw house down, if you will. Yeah. Made his way to the ring, met up with Harley, and they just fucking brawled for what seemed like forever, but it's probably, 10 or 12 minutes or what have you. And of course, it's just a double DQ. But man, you talk about being scared, because like I said, I was 17 years old. I probably weighed $150 maybe, 5'11", whatever, skinny as a rail, and I had some pretty big friends that's with me too, but they're all like, this is someone that you just don't want to fuck with coming through that crowd. And man, people, he was there to fucking whip ass, man. I'm telling you. And it was one of the most, being scared of the wrestling match is a thrill. You know what I'm saying? As a fan. And man, I was just a young fan, and it was scary, man. And I can't imagine, just mentioning this with The Undertaker, I've heard people talk about that music hitting and you get them chill bumps and that scared knowing he's coming to the ring. And that's why he's number one. But the all time, man, using that Freebird rule, you imagine being in the ring and fucking looking down through there and seeing Brody just coming through the crowd, Japanese people scattering every fucking where like Godzilla hit town or something, or being a 17-year-old kid and he just fucking throwing tables through the crowd like toothpicks. You know what I'm saying? But man, that's the all-time greatest right there, man. Bruiser Brody, the inventor of the fucking brawling style. Just tough.
Yeah, Brody was something to see. I, of course, I'd seen a recorded match or two when I was younger when they'd call him King Kong Brody, and I was like, what's up with that? Yeah. Well, it's because up in that part of the Midwest, nobody's the Bruiser but the Bruiser. But outside of there, the Bruiser is Bruiser Brody. That's who everybody thinks of. That's the name. And if you younger people don't know who he is, you should go check out. Yeah. I know there's matches on YouTube. Go check him out. Awesome. I understand that he was one of those guys like Terry Funk. Like, even these photographers that he knew, when they were ringside and he was wrestling, they got the fuck out of his way. They were like, you don't hold still in front of this man. You do not stand where he's trying to go.
Right.
And Bruiser, he, not being a horror film based or anything kind of guy, he was just a fucking killer. And he was scary because of it. Yep.
I agree, man. I tell you what. If you can't tell from my voice, I didn't reach over and get a drink. There's excitement. I have to say this. This has been one of the funnest fucking lists we've done. I don't know how it come across on the podcast. I know we're getting ready to log off here, and I'm going to say my goodbyes and let Jeremy close out the show. But here's the thing. This list to me was one of the funnest top 10s that we've ever done. And there could have been some people that could have made it. Again, use the hashtag BBBB, either at the Geekish Cast on Twitter or at Bobby Blaze 744 on Twitter, or using the dual account of Bell to Bell Blaze on Twitter. And we got a Facebook page too, a group you can join. Jeremy's in charge of that. Just go over there, because this was a fun list, and I appreciate Jeremy, because I know you liked it too. Thank you very much, man.
Oh yeah, no, this is a lot of fun. I'll tell you what, I'm a little, I don't know about this venue. I don't think I want to come back here.
Yeah, no.
There's that creepy old fucker running around in a trench coat outside. I can't help but feel like somebody's watching us the whole time we've been here.
I think they have.
And I heard that wrestling ring in the center of this room is cursed. So I think, Haddonfield, you can kiss my ass, I think is where I'm going with that. All right, everybody. Bobby, thank you for joining me again. It's always a pleasure.
Yes, sir.
And everybody else, for Bobby Blaze and for myself, Jeremy Vilmer, bye-bye, everybody.